we have got to go right down to Dade County, Miami, and talk about
Crazy,
what happened
bro.
last night between Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington. Bro, there's bad blood, RC, but then there are times when bad blood spills over and the situation becomes very unfortunate. I think that is what we are seeing right now between these two down in Florida.
Yeah, DC, I think the big thing is when we look at fighters, you look at, and let's be honest, they're mixed martial artists now. There has to be a level of respect there. There has to be a level of professionalism. And I think that's hard sometimes because the bottom line is, bro, it's fighting. The bottom line is that at some point, these things can become personal. And obviously, the relationship between Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington runs deep. It's something that is deep rooted in history. And not everybody is to be played with in certain ways, DC. And I don't really know any other way to put it, that sometimes being the villain or sometimes building a fight, sometimes making sure that you say certain things that gets people interested in the match that's supposed to take place in the octagon, sometimes that goes over the line, and not everybody is okay with letting it be there. And I saw something that Jorge Masvidal posted. It said, it's a show your face challenge, and that, I'm from Dade County, and if you run your mouth, these certain things. Listen, this is a dude that was willing to fight in backyards. This is a dude that had no issue with standing in front of men with no gloves, with no sanctions. And so if you think that he's going to back down ever when he has an emotional feeling about someone else, he's not. Jorge Masvidal has shown you, even at a post-fight press conference or at a post-fight interview, if you talk, you could get three-pieced, as we saw with Leon Edwards. But I know for the UFC, I know for mixed martial artists all over the world that are continuing to look for respect as it pertains to its sport, this is not necessarily the black eye that a lot of people would have wanted.
Ryan, it's hard for me to really sit up here and judge Jorge for his actions, being that John Jones and I had many altercations that almost ended up in the same way. But ultimately, people were able to stop us from taking it to the next level. But here's the thing. A lot of these altercations happen prior to the fights happening, and then we were always very clear of each other. When you got 25 minutes, right? You got 25 minutes. And that is the only place in which I'm going to condemn Jorge Masvidal. You had 25 minutes less than 2 weeks ago to do everything you wanted. It does not seem as though this was it's so hard here not to assume. But it does not seem as though this was a come face-to-face and we get into a fight. It seems like something different. And that's where it becomes a little bit off. Now, you're right. Jorge Masvidal. Hold on one second. My TV went off, RC. Okay. Jorge Masvidal is a fighter. He's an absolute fighter. He is an absolute dog. But I don't know if it can seep into the streets like that. But we saw with Khabib and Conor, right? Khabib was not willing to let it go. It went too far for him to say, at the end of the fight, we're okay. It went too far. And I feel like that's what happened. But, Colby Covington was supposed to join us today, RC. But he opted to kind of take some time to process everything, which we respect because we're men. But like you said, you can't play with certain people. But I just don't really know, man, if you can do it in the way that it seems to have been done. Because now I think some serious stuff is going to come out of this, that these guys have families.
Yeah, I think, obviously I've tried to read whatever I could about some of the charges that have been filed. The plaintiff in the case or, the victim in the case is not named. So we can't necessarily say, we know exactly who it is or what has happened. But it doesn't seem, at least from what I've read and what I've heard, that it was the situation of, hey, we understand this is about to happen. Let it happen. We don't want things to get ugly. As much as we enjoy rivalries and we enjoy altercations and you enjoy tension, you want everybody to get home safe. You want everyone to get home whole. And, we'll talk to Molly McCann later, and, we'll get to hear her, talk about, what happened in her fight. and how you can knock people out. You know, we saw the same thing with a guy like Arnold Allen, you know, in the way that he was able to beat Dan Hooker. That's where we want things to be. That's where we want things to stay. And so to now see that go away from the octagon and be out in the streets or be happen in the restaurants, you do feel like they should have had better people around them. DC, my entire life, there was always someone when I was out or if I was at a restaurant or if I, you know, went to a party that would make sure everything was copacetic with me. If we saw someone who you do have an issue with, somebody leaves or somebody gets in between and make sure that these things don't happen. And so though I've loved everything that's going on between these two men in the UFC, I do not love what is taking place now for either guy, whether that be Kobe or Jorge Masvidal.
You know what? With the way that you had someone around you to protect you, it's honestly because of where you're from. And for me, I always had people around me that would go, you guys can't do this now because of where I'm from. And knowing who I am at my core, that when that stuff starts to seep into a street situation, if you're going to attack it. Colby Covington is not a street guy. Like, I will tell you today, Colby Covington is not a street guy. Colby Covington is a guy that likes to talk and fight. The shtick may have crossed the line, and now it's gotten him into a situation that he is not really equipped for. That is why, Ryan, he didn't have anybody in place with him to make sure that it didn't cross the line.
Right.
But because I know who I am, I always made sure somebody was in there, in that place with me to make sure that I didn't cross the line, to ensure my safety and protect everything that I was building. Same thing with you. Understanding where you're from, knowing that if things go sideways, this is a dude that I know will go and do what he has to do.
Absolutely.
So you got to have somebody you trust to make sure that you don't go and lose everything that you've worked so hard for. Kobe's not that guy. Kobe's not a guy that is looking to be dealing in street things. He may talk like it. When he says he's the king of Miami, he's talking about he's the best fighter for Miami. And it's hard to argue that right now, considering Usman's training in Colorado. It's hard to argue that. But it's also the fact that you're on the internet all the time. He was on the Full Send podcast, right? He was out with that guy, Bob Minery, who was in the video with him on TMZ. Yep. So he said, how does he know where I'm at? Well, it's easy to find out because everything's tracked nowadays.
Right.
Everything's tracked, and it's so easy for people to find you. And it's unfortunate, man. It's very unfortunate for Colby. It's very unfortunate for Jorge because now, Ryan, it sucks, but some serious things is going to come out of that for both of these gentlemen, as you said a few minutes ago. Now, Ryan.